National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So I'm walking down the hallway, so you'll see people, and as I pass this one door, there's a gentleman sitting closest to the door. His name was Steve. He was holding a human skull. Well, that stopped me in my tracks. My name is Joe Mullins. I'm a senior forensic imaging specialist in the Forensic Services Unit here at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's not necessary to age progress a child that's has been missing for younger than 2 years. A face doesn't change that significantly to warrant an age progression. In the realm of facial approximation from skeletal remains, there's no time limit. Now these are cold cases. They're cases that have been sitting there sometimes 10, 20, 30, 40 years that have been sitting at these ME's offices, again, the coldest of the cold cases. So there's no real timeline. You're just getting access to those skulls and then facilitating the steps to get the facial approximation completed. It's a time-consuming process to create a facial approximation from skeletal remains. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, namely the facilitating the scan, getting access to the scan, to the skull, the 3D printing process, the investigator, the medical examiner. So the time it takes, never hit a stopwatch and done the timing, but it's a lot of goes on behind the scenes to pull these off. So you see me standing there sculpting, on a physical skull. There's a lot of things have come to fruition to make that happen. I get that question a lot when you're completing the facial approximation, like what's the part that jumps out? What's the part that's most recognizable? And they always say is the golden triangle is basically this area around, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. That's what's most recognizable. But we found it could be just one particular characteristic that a family, hones in on that says, and it could be just that one thing. It'd be something with the smile, or if that's, something with the teeth, something with a crooked nose, or some asymmetry in the face that we're able to get those details when we're looking at a skull to make that transition into the soft tissue and the image that we create. That could be that one little thing, those little nuances that we gotta make sure we put it's not just a face, it has to be the right face, and that right face will spark that recognition. Family members, when they're looking for a lost loved one, I found it could be just a combination of characteristics, whatever unique to that individual. Hopefully we've made that and conveyed that through the image, and whatever works to spark that recognition, we'll take it. But I don't think there's one particular feature that stands out. I think it's just a combination of the right features in the right proportions that helps get these identified. There are several advantages to doing it traditional way with hands-on method with clay, and now doing them digitally. I was a fine artist. I love getting my hands dirty. I love the smells, the sights, the feels. Everything comes with the tactile. You're getting your hands on it. You're physically creating something. That's the fine artist in me, explaining the the feeling, the emotional, reaction that I have while I'm working. But I can't ignore the digital aspect of doing these, where we can use the CT scan of a skull, not the physical skull. It's done in a digital environment where we have this, fancy software, freeform modeler. We're able to import that CT scan, and really just everything we do with the clay is now represented in that digital environment. It's a little bit faster. I can sculpt an ear, which is a lot of detail work, copy and paste it, flip it to the side. So there's advantages, not that faster is not better in this realm, but I can see advantages to both ways. Now, my background's in fine art and graphic design, and I prefer the clay method. I'm old-fashioned, the old school way of doing it. So, but both are still being utilized today. The digital stuff has a steep learning curve. Traditional methods, incorporating the 3D prints and the scans, is still being used today as well. So it really depends on the artist and location or where these are being completed. But both old school and new school are both being utilized in this realm today. Once these images are completed, we want to saturate on a global scale to get these images out to as many eyes as possible. Social media is key. We have to take advantage of all those outlets. The National Center for Missing Exploited Children, we have our own Facebook presence, Instagram presence, Help ID Me. It'll go on the Name Us database, missingkids.com database. Everywhere that we're able to put those images, we're going to do it. It'll go back to the jurisdiction agency who has the case, and it'll go on their websites. The news will cover it. As many places as possible. We want to get that image out, to get the right eyes on it, in hopes to spark that recognition and get that person identified and that case closed. I think I would implement, make it part of a standard practice when skulls are found, to have them automatically, 3D scanned and printed. We scan the skulls, 3D print the skulls. Now we have a copy of it in case anything else goes wrong. Now we're able to send it out for testing, and then we have that to fall back on us. We have a set plan B that's already in place. I would love to get more, it's a collaboration and consolidation of the resources and technologies that we have, and it's going a million miles an hour this way. Advances, AI is a big hot topic. Well, the way to utilize all this stuff, just little pieces of this technology, AI, scanning, printing, cooperation from corporate sponsors to get this image out there, media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those places, consolidate all those resources and have it just be a standard practice to get these images out there. Not just of the facial approximation of the skulls that are out there, but the missing children. The National Center is built on hope. That's the gas that runs this place. So we need all the help we can get that's fuel that, momentum, and get these images out to as many eyes as possible. That's a reoccurring theme with this Q&A, is get it out to as many eyes as possible. That would be my dream, is just to make that happen, instantaneously. Get it out. We're doing a case, it goes out to the globe. That's always been something kind of eye-opening for me in my time here. Just hit 25 years here at the National Center for Missing Exploited Children, and in that time, it's always fascinating to me when the tours and law enforcement agencies, the who's who, just come through here on tours, and they walk into our room for demonstration, and their eyes wide open, their jaws drops, like, I had no idea this service was available. So we're a one-stop forensic shop where we can do the facial approximations, age progressions, soft tissue reconstructions, anything you need from a law enforcement agency where a missing child is active cases involved or unidentified. We are here to help. We have 4 full-time artists, so it's just fascinating to me that there's that lack of, information in the world that we live in. People still don't know the resources that we have available to us here. So we are here to help. We are a free resource for law enforcement, globally. If it's the case that if we can't help you, the National Center can't help you, we will make sure we put you in touch with somebody who can help you, because that's the biggest thing is, sharing that information. If we're your agency, maybe again through this Q&A, maybe this will help put it on somebody else's, hey, I didn't know the National Center could help with unidentified facial, approximations. We've got 10 skulls here. So I think just repetitive, getting information out there as many eyes as possible. Again, that's sharing that information and offering the service. We are here to help. You have an identified skull that's assessed as a 21, say late teens, early 20s, we can help. If you have a missing child case did you need an age progression for, that's missing at least 2 years, law enforcement involved, we can help. It's like, just, if you have a question, call us. We'll tell you if we can help or not, but you got to call us first. Again, if we can't help you, we will find somebody who can. So to all the law enforcement agency, we are a global organization. If we can't help you, we will find somebody who can. One of the most difficult or challenging cases was we called them the barrel cases. It was a case from Allenstown where it was Terry Rasmussen was a serial killer. He killed his girlfriend at the time, her 2 daughters, and there was a 4th victim that was unidentified. Now the mother and the 2 daughters ended up getting identified through resources. It was like the cyber sleuth. So that's great. That's exactly what we want. If you're sitting at home and love true crime and see these images, you're able to again share it, and you're investigating whatever it takes to get these victims identified. But there was a little girl, a 4th little child that was involved with that case that's still unidentified. Now this was back when the skulls were actually sent to me. We don't like to do that anymore. Now we have utilized the technology where the skull stays with the investigative agency. Quick, don't mail us skulls. We will contact us, we'll facilitate, get them scanned and printed. But this is back then, they sent us the skulls. So it's a different, I don't know, attachment to these cases where now I'm taking these skulls out of the boxes. The bodies were stuffed in barrels and blunt force trauma to the skulls. Now, as I'm pulling these out, I pull out the mom, the 2 young girls. It was mom and it was 4 girls. And this is about the time years ago where I had children that were about the same age of these skulls that I'm pulling out of the box. So that one just struck a chord. And the reality is, I'm pulling out these skulls. That's the thing to really hammer home is these aren't skulls. These are somebody's mom, somebody's daughter, somebody's son, these are people that have lost their identity. They were born with a name and now they've lost it. It's our job to give it back to them. So as I'm pulling these out, I'm pulling out this this woman, this little girl, this other little girl, all with just trauma to the skulls. So there's that one little girl that has not been identified. That's the one that was the most difficult, most emotional roller coaster of a case that I've dealt with in my 25 years here. And she's still unidentified. That's the case that was more difficult, emotional for me to handle. But I really want that little girl to get her name back. That's that one I really wanted. That's definitely the most difficult case that I've worked with. How do you become a forensic artist? It's a good question. You can't go to a forensic arts school. There's academy. It's kind of like a piecemeal type of thing. I teach I teach anybody who wants to know. I teach at George Mason University here in Virginia, the New York Academy of Arts in Tribeca, New York. I've taught basically globally to people that want to learn how to do this. But it is a combination of art and science. So when I tell my students, if there's something you want to do, it's like, well, first of all, you have to be a fine artist first. Don't believe anything you see yet on the AI. There's no instant, push a button and make, well, you can do, create age progressions, but there's nothing yet where you can push an easy button and put a face on a skull. So what I tell my students, be that fine artist. Now be comfortable enough, because if you're going to do a forensic art, there's going to be a time where you're going to be some remote area. There's, and your laptop dies. I loved, painting this scenario for my young students and the panic that goes over their face. So, no phone, no computer, no Wi-Fi. That's when I really get their attention. here's a skull. What can you do? Well, now you can do it with clay. It's all those old. So that's where the fine artist comes in. So you take my computer and technology away, I can still do it with a pencil and paper and clay. So you have to be a fine artist before you can be a forensic artist. Everything you need to know about human form, painting, drawing, sculpting, that's what you get with that fine art degree. And then incorporates any technology that's available. There's the softwares, the freeform modeler that we use. There's ZBrush, there's Maya, any of those animation softwares. If you're savvy at both the technology and the old school arts, well, then combine those together, you're a lethal forensic artist at that point. Soak all that up. Immerse yourself in Adobe Photoshop. Adobe Photoshop is one of the tool that we use 90% of the time. And Adobe Photoshop, there's no easy button for Adobe Photoshop. It's I always say Adobe Photoshop has like this many tools. I use this many just to do what we do is, creating images, manipulating photographs, and like a digital Mr. Potato Head. But also Photoshop has a steep learning curve. Those are people that don't just open it up. It's funny, over the years, somebody will see this interview maybe and say, "Oh, Photoshop, I have Photoshop," and they'll open it up and they'll reach out to me and say, "Hey, where's the age progression button?" Now, it does have an age progression button now, one of the neuro filters, but it doesn't. You have to do. It's more technique than technology. Again, backtracking to that fine understanding of the process, how a face ages. It's that fine art comes into play again, but. Fine artist, learn all the technology. That would be and take workshops, go online. There are people that are forensic artists that have been established that are teaching workshops, composite art classes, learn to do a cognitive interview, to the sketches, sculpting, painting, drawing, Photoshop, ZBrush, do it all. Be a sponge. If this is what you want to do, that, and go to these, conferences and mix and mingle, contact a medical examiner, contact a cold case investigator at your local agency. Get to know the people that are involved with these cases and understand, because this is not a job for everybody. It comes with this very, very, very big emotional load. So that'd be my first advice. Talk to a medical examiner, talk to a cold case investigator, go to the morgue and see those cases. Those are the things you're going to be exposed to. So. And if anything else if you have questions along the way, you can contact me and I'll put you on the path and get you there. If you want to do this, we need help, I'll teach you myself. My background is in fine art and graphic design. Started off at the Savannah College of Art and Design, was there for 2 years and ended up back home here in Virginia at James Madison University, fine art and graphic design. Going down the road of graphic design after college, had a job, a design firm, not going to mention the name of the company or organization. It was the worst job ever. Not fun, not creative, doing graphic design like logos and had to typeset resumes for people. It was a horrible job. Well, a friend of mine left that job and got a job at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. At the time, it was basically across the street. We were in Arlington, Virginia at the time. So he had left, and that was my only saving grace, was my friend there. And now he's gone. I was even more miserable at this graphic design job. So he called me up one day after he left and said, "Hey, you want to grab lunch?" And immediately I was over. I was like, yes, anything to get out of this place where I was working. So I was like, where are you anyway? So he gave me the address, and looked it up. It's like I could see it. Look out the window. It's like, oh, you're basically right across the street. Yeah, I'll walk over there. So I walk in. I get to the front desk. I tell him, "Here to meet my friend Ed," and Brenda, who was at the front desk, walks me back. "I'll walk you back." So as I'm walking down the hall, now I had no idea what the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children was. No clue. I remember thinking at the time, that's a long name. You say NCMEC, but people don't know what NCMEC is. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So I'm walking down the hallway, kind of that's going to my head, and so you'll see people. And as I pass this one door, there's a gentleman sitting closest to the door, and he's sitting there looking like a Shakespearean, Hamlet. He's sitting with a skull in his hand. His name was Steve. He was holding a human skull. Well, that stopped me in my tracks. I stop, I turn around, I look, and I kind of looking around like, where am I? And is that a real skull? So I stopped right in front of him. So I forced him to stop what he was doing to interact with me. Thought it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. It was the first time I'd met a forensic artist, Steve, the forensic artist. He's telling me about this random skull. Now it turns out that skull that he was holding was the very first skull that ever ended up at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That it was a breakdown in communication. An investigator from Las Vegas had called and needed help with an image. So Glenn, there was only 2 artists at the time. So Glenn had taken the call from this investigator, and there was a lot of back and forth. This guy was very determined to get this case identified, but he was saying he needed help with an image. So Glenn explains, like, I can't help you unless I see what you're talking about. Go ahead and send us what you have, and we'll take a look at it. Well, that's all he needed to hear. So we exchanged addresses back in the good old days where you actually mailed things. So a box arrived a couple days later, so from Las Vegas. So Glenn opens it up, pulls out the image, and he reaches into the box and pulls out a skull. So he immediately puts it back in the box, calls the investigator, and I'm sure they had a little bit more heated discussion or exchange. The investigator was, well, you said, send us what you got. We have a skull. It was like, we don't do that here. Skull's not on our to-do list. We can't help you with the image. Yes, right. So we can help you with the image. Don't do anything with the skulls. Well, the investigator must have been a great communicator, because he basically talked Glenn into doing it. It's like, we have it. Whatever you can with it. So Glenn, being the senior artist, when Steve came into work that morning, said, good morning here. So Steve's now handed the skull, and it's about that same conversation happened 1,000 times now that has a skull sitting in the forensic imaging unit. So Steve, I don't know what to do with this. So he's like, do whatever you can. So he goes and sits down at his desk and is staring at the skull. And that was the moment that I came walking down the hall. So fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it. That was a life-changing visit to my first visit to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. That was what I saw, and here I am 25 years later. This is what I'm doing. I'm a forensic artist, because that was a game-changing, life-changing event.